Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode five of Coding for Cure. We will learn to code in Python while also helping out the Cure Foundation in its mission to cure childhood cancer. All profits from this course will benefit Cure. I'll have a donate link posted in the description of this video for anybody who wants to pitch in and help Cure. In this video, we're going to do something pretty cool and pretty big. Functions and procedures. If you haven't watched last week's video, feel free to click on my channel and go watch it, as it may have some information that you might find helpful for this video. But anyways, let's get started with this video. Let's name some functions we know in Python. Quick hint here, these functions don't have to be defined by you. These are functions that are already in Python. So, some of those functions you may be familiar with are the print function, the for loop function, the while loop function, and the input function. These do a great job of illustrating what a function really is in Python. At the end of the day, it's just a piece of code that does something without you having to write out what it does every single time. For example, with the print function, you don't have to write out all the complex code that it takes for it to transfer what you have in the parentheses onto the terminal. You don't have to write that out every single time. You simply just call the print function once, put the text in the parentheses, and it prints it out for you. So, essentially, functions are part of a bigger thing called methods. So methods are essentially blocks of code that can be called to perform a specific task. They help in modularizing your code, making it easier to read, understand, and maintain. And they fall into two groups, either the functions we previously talked about or procedures. So what's the main difference? So functions are methods that can return a value, i.e. you can set a variable equal to an output of a function. For example, I can have a function called add. This function is able to set a variable equal to the product of addition. Similarly, we have procedures, which can do all the exact same things. However, they do not return a value, i.e. you can use them to print something. For example, if I were to create a new procedure that simply just prints somebody's full name based on if you give the person's first and last name, the function itself is not actually like returning a value. It's not returning the person's name that can literally be printed by me. It is simply printing out the values. So let's get into the syntax of both functions and procedures. All methods have the same, are written the exact same way. So we first put def to define the method. We then write the name of the method, i.e. what we will call it by later when we want to use it. After we write parameters that it takes in, i.e. what does it need, what values does it need to take in order to do what we want it to do. So now I'll write an example of function, an example of procedure. All right. Now let's write some functions and procedures. So first, let's do a quick function. I'll have a function I'll define first and foremost, which we will define for most of your coding life when you're coding professionally. It's a function called def main. This is incredibly important as almost all professional coders will definitely write out their code inside of main. And then we'll write just a simple, we'll just write a simple variable like x is equal to 5, just to make sure it stops making an error, right? And then we'll write down here if underscore underscore name is underscore underscore equal to open our quotes main. You might be asking, what does this do? Like, why should I write out my code in this specific format that I am writing it out in currently? Well, there's a pretty simple reason for this. With professional code, you want to be able to call different functions, right? And it's very difficult to call your functions if they're not written ahead of time without using something like a main statement. All right. So now let's start a basic function now. So in our main, let's say we'll have two variables, x and y, and we'll set those equal to 5 and 8, for example, right? Now, let's say I'll want to add the numbers. So I'll make, for example, this function, and I'll set the variable z equal to add, and then I'll do x, comma, y, or the variables I've inputted into those parameters. So now you might be asking, what do I do from here, right? I've just written add. Obviously, if I run this code right now, we get a name error because, simply put, add itself is not defined for our code. Python has absolutely no idea what function I'm calling because it simply doesn't exist. So here we get to a pretty important part of functions. Functions don't need to be defined simply by x and y. Python is able to handle and knows exactly what you mean, simply based on the spacing of the parameters. So to define the function add, we'll simply write def add, and then we'll write the parameters, what numbers we want. In this case, I'll have it as num1, comma, num2. Now you might be asking, well, I wrote add, comma, x, comma, y, right? Won't Python now have an error again? Because it doesn't know what x and y are if I write num1 and num2. Actually, the only thing that really matters is their positioning. You can see num1 is positioned over here and num2 is positioned here. Therefore, Python assumes that, okay, x is the same as num1 and y is the same as num2 in this case, specifically this case only. And then I'll have the rest of the function. I'll just write number 3 or num3 is equal to num1 plus num2. Just like that. Very simple. And then we'll have return num3. Now, return is another pretty important thing in functions. Whenever you write a function compared to a procedure, procedures do not have return statements because they don't return a value. Function, however, returns a value, hence return num3. So now, if we print z, let's run our code. Oh, let's make sure that our name is equal to main is below it. Now, when we run our code, we get the proper output. 5 plus 8 is equal to 13. There you have it. Writing a function is just that simple. Similarly, instead of wanting to print this, say I want to give the user a bit more information on what's actually happening, right? I can make a new function called def describe, so that you can just have it have num1 and num2, because it would need the numbers, and then num3, what they make, right? And we could have this procedure not actually return anything, but it's a procedure again. We just have it right print num1 plus just print. For here, we'll make a string, we'll say plus sign here. We'll do str. str is another function you might want to know. It converts whatever's in the parentheses into a string. And it's pretty important in Python because whenever you're printing something out, you cannot print different data types together. Therefore, you have to convert the others. In this case, since I'm using a string for the plus, I need to convert the first number, second number, and third number into strings. And then we will set that equal to string num 3. There we go. Just gotta make sure that we have our addition signs to make it all line up. And if we make it, instead of saying print Z, we'll do describe X, comma, Y, comma, Z. But let's say equals 13. So there you have it. That simple writing functions and procedures in Python. All right. So here's a quick practice exercise. Can you make your own code that can add two numbers and make that equal to 10 this time? Pause the video here if you need a little bit of time to work on it. All right, I'll go over the solution to this problem now. To add two numbers equal to 10, I would simply just have to change 5 and 8 to equal something like 5 and 5, right? Otherwise, my function is the same. That's the greatest part of the functions. I don't need to rewrite any statements because 5 and 8, because the numbers have now changed or anything. Nope, all the same. We run that, works just like that. All right, now here's another exercise for you guys. So as you can see here, I have code that takes a person's name as an input. Now I want to make procedure that will print the person's name, given that they input their name as name. So can you figure out how to define this function, what you should define it as, and then print it? To do this, I would simply write first name is equal to input. What is your name? And then I would write def print name. Just write name in the brackets. Again, it doesn't have to exactly be name, it could be anything else. And then we can write print name. And I'll call print name in main. Name. Now, if we run this code, it'll ask me, what is your name? Then I can write, say, Kelly. And it prints that out. It's just that simple. So make sure to join back next week, where we will be going over making a calculator using functions. And make sure to practice these skills on your own, guys, again, because the only way to get good at like writing functions and procedures is just repeatedly writing your code over and over again, experimenting with your code to figure out what like each individual change could do to your code. For example, what if when it says X and Y, put X and Y, what if I switch those two? What happens to the code, right? For example. And other than that, hope you all have a great day. Remember, if you can, please donate to Cure. Thank you.